Our final presenter is Kathleen Brockway. Kathleen L. Brockway is a deaf historian, educator, and founder of the Heritage ASL nonprofit, dedicated to preserving deaf cultural heritage across the U.S. She is a doctoral student at Lamar University, focusing on deaf communities and cultural sustainability. She authored Baltimore's Deaf Heritage and Detroit's Deaf Heritage, with 2 more books underway. Holding a master's in cultural sustainability from Goucher College and a deaf cultural studies certificate from Gallaudet University. Kathleen blends scholarship with community outreach, uncovering and sharing untold deaf histories to educate and inspire through Heritage ASL. Her presentation, Mapping Deaf Legacies, Spatializing Deaf Histories in the Formation of Texas, is sponsored by Lamar University. Please join me in welcoming to the stage Kathleen.
All right, I want to say a huge gratitude to everyone. It's a huge honor for me to be here, and I'm thrilled to be in this company. I'm, of course, a historian. I just want to do something quickly before we start the presentation. I tend to see you guys wave your hands. I would love to see that out in the audience right now. As a deaf person in deaf culture, waving the hands is like applause. So I'd love to take a quick video of you guys applauding me, essentially. You ready? One minute, okay. Let's go, get your hands up, come on. Hands up, hands up. Wave your hands. There we go. Oh, thank you so much, thank you. So I just want to remind you all that this is the very tip of the iceberg in terms of my research. I've just started to research, and I've found so much that still is behind and hasn't been discovered, hasn't been researched or recognized. We need historical markers in some of these places. So I've started an analysis of deaf legacies, and I've realized they're very incomplete information out there, and I would love to expose the public. I've recognized that race, migration, education and advocacy, there's just not enough deaf history for public consumption in the state of Texas. I know I only have a 15-minute time frame here, so I'm gonna have to skip some of this PowerPoint presentations. I can't cover everything in my doctoral studies, so I did want to thank you for your patience if you notice me kind of skipping through some slides. This is my favorite slide. I used ArcGIS to create this, ArcGIS Pro, and I'm sure you guys are well aware of that software. Some of you are aware of it. I created it with latitude and longitude coordinates. And I just want to see these little spots here, the tiny markers that I've created. Those are deaf historical markers that need recognition, especially in southern Texas. That red dot marking McAllen. And also El Paso. McAllen, Texas, at the border between the United States and Mexico, is a critical part of deaf history. It's a multicultural place with deaf people, Mexican culture. There are deaf students who live in Mexico and would cross the border every day to go to school and have exposure to education in their language. And I would love to recognize their stories. Right now, Mexican kids have no education in that area of northern Mexico. So McAllen was a wonderful opportunity for them. They could cross the Rio Grande every day, essentially. Walk across the bridge or drive. Their parents would walk them there, pick them up, and drop them off every day. They got a serious education there, not only in sign language, but also in LSM, which is Mexican Sign Language. And they got that education at the school in McAllen. There were around 60 to 130 kids from 1979 up until the year the border wall was essentially constructed. After the border wall, Mexican kids could no longer go to school in McAllen. So the population of the school has reduced to 30 to maybe 60 students at a time, because there are no Mexican kids able to cross the border. And I'm wondering what they're doing, what those deaf students in Mexico, how they're getting an education. I would love to hear their stories, because that multicultural experience is so essential. We want to know what's happening in their families. There's even a student from Puerto Rico whose parents found out about that area, where a multicultural school where their child could get an education both in sign language and receive Spanish education, and they moved their family from Puerto Rico to McAllen so that they could get an education. And that student is now at Lamar University, where I am studying. She told me her story about after she graduates from Lamar, she wants to teach at that school in McAllen because she feels so connected to it. There is a standard kind of white ASL that we use here in Austin, and we don't really see that LSM. So in McAllen, it's a different language experience, and we need to value that. This is one of the reasons it's so important to be able to see that map. Each dot on this map corresponds with a person on this slide. Leroy Colombo, he's from Galveston, Texas. He was a famous lifeguard in Galveston. He would rescue swimmers on the beach, like several people who were in danger on the beach in Galveston. There is a deaf marker, there is this historical marker there on the beach marking his contributions to life-saving beachgoers. There's also a pool named after him. I'm wondering how many of you know about A.Z. Morton, excuse me. How many know A.Z. Morton's name? Do you know, maybe? She was the 36th treasurer of the United States under the Jimmy Carter administration. President Jimmy Carter appointed her as treasurer, and she graduated from the Black Deaf School. Yeah, for real. She's hearing, she's not deaf, but her mother was deaf. So her area, her district in Dale, Texas, had no high school. It was so small that there was no access. And her mother was like, well, she knows sign. So they sent her to the Black Deaf School in Texas. It was near East Austin. That was the campus that isn't there anymore, but during times of segregation, that's where she went to high school. And she became class valedictorian. She is buried next to her mother in Dale, Texas, which is, yeah, next to her mother. I'm sure you guys know who Deaf Smith is, right? Raise hands. You all know Deaf Smith. But where's his story? In the book that's downstairs, I didn't see any books about Deaf Smith, no mentions of him, and he's such a critical figure in Texas history and a deaf man. He went deaf in childhood, but he was a skilled lip reader, so he was able to bring information during the war. He's a huge part of Texas history. There's a county named after him. Some people think that's the only recognition he got, but he's got a whole narrative, and he's essential in deaf culture. Two buildings here. You'll see the top one has those two towers. That's the Texas School for the Deaf, and in deaf culture, they used to call that building the Rabbit because of those ears, kind of, as the towers were. That was the Texas School for the Deaf, the old building. On the bottom is the Black Deaf School, and that's where AZ went to school. This is a really important guy. He founded a deaf church, a deaf-owned church in Fort Worth, Texas, for many years. Well over 25 years, he ran a deaf church there, which is an important part of history and needs to be recognized. James Wells came from New York. He was one of the very first educators at Texas School for the Deaf, and he met his future wife there when she was a student, and later married her, proposed, then moved back east and taught in New York, and then moved to Maryland. He was the principal at a black deaf school in Maryland, and had 3 deaf generations with his wife. The deafness stayed in the family. And all were leaders on the East Coast. The last picture here is Otis Massey, Jr. He was a graduate of Gallaudet. He was only the 3rd black student to graduate from Gallaudet University. I'm sorry, I want to clarify that. The 3rd deaf male to graduate black male to graduate from Gallaudet. And he moved to Texas, and he taught at the Black Deaf School. There are students who are still alive who remember him, alumni of the Black Deaf School who were his students, and they've told me that he was a real teacher. And I didn't really understand what they meant by that at first. My guess is that he taught well, and they still remember him. They still have an image of him as a mentor. He died in 1993, and I think he should be recognized. He was a brilliant student at Gallaudet. He was a writer. He wrote for the newsletter at Gallaudet, and they gave him the highest award. The whole Gallaudet campus was proud of him and gave him high honors. So I'm hoping you all can collaborate with me. I'm really looking for a collaborator to create a public map to show everyone the stories of deaf history. I've done this in Virginia. The Virginia Spatial Story of Deaf Communities, and I would love to create a similar map for Texas. I want to recognize those stories from primary sources being, of course, hard to find. I'm hoping someone in the audience would love to collaborate with me to really flesh out this project. And please follow me on Instagram, Heritage ASL, or you can contact me directly with the information here. Go ahead and take a picture, and I would love to discuss any of this more, talk about my research, the deaf history markers, if we could. I drive all over taking pictures of deaf things. On my Instagram page, you'll see me signing, and sometimes I don't have captions, but usually I'll have a transcript. And contact me if you are as excited about this as I am, because I'd love to collaborate with you. I know there are a lot of other people like me who are doing this kind of preservation of the important history. Thank you so much.